Shipping containers, refrigerated freight trains, and trailers have become really popular these days for growing mushrooms. Is this really enough space to have a successful small-scale farm? What's up, Mushroom Fam? It's Gary with Fresh from the Farm Fungi. I'm here on my farm in Sedalia, and we're talking about how much space is really required to hit that benchmark of 100 pounds a week for a small-scale mushroom farm. If you're on the fence about purchasing one of these trailer farms and you need some clarity, then unlock a sense of peace and wellness by using Fantastic Fungi's Gratitude Elixir with lion's mane, cordyceps, maitake, reishi, shiitake, chaga, turkey tail, and tremella. I like to add a drop to my morning coffee to start my day right. This helps me with my daily mindfulness practice by grounding me to nature. Click the link in the description below to get yours now. So when you look at the farm anatomy, I like to break it up into different sections of the farm according to their function. So when you're considering buying an all-in-one plug-and-play farm, these are the things that you're gonna wanna consider. So the first section of the farm, and arguably the most important, is going to be the lab. Now, oftentimes people will think they need a lot more space than they actually do for the lab, but this is a very efficient real estate on the farm. So for me, I have my setup here behind me where I have a vertical flow hood to do all of my culture work, and then I have my horizontal flow hood where I do all of my inoculations. Now, you can combine this down into one single flow hood if you'd like, and then you can really condense this space into a very small, efficient area. So I would say you can get away with a 10 by 10 lab on a small scale farm that produces about 100 pounds a week if you have a good flow hood, a bench, and an area where you can easily move around to inoculate your substrate. So to me, this is the flex portion of your mushroom farm, and it really depends on how many mushrooms you're growing and your grow cycles, and also what types of mushrooms you're growing. So if you're growing oyster mushrooms on a 1 week schedule, then you're going to need about the same amount of space as your fruiting. But if you're growing shiitake mushrooms that take about 6 to 8 weeks, then you're going to want to have about double the space of your fruiting. So for here on my farm, I get away with about 200 square feet of incubation space, and all of my incubation is taking place on rolling racks. So if I get ups and downs, or if there's a backlog, I can easily move that around my farm accordingly. If I think about the trailers that are being pitched as mushroom farms, this is often a bottleneck on that trailer, because you'll go from your lab and then you'll incubate all your bags, and then there's often not very much room for incubation. So if you don't have the proper amount of space, that leads to squishing bags together, which could lead to temperature issues and ultimately contamination problems. So this is something that you want to consider if you're thinking about how much space you need for incubation. So this should be the most real estate that's devoted on your farm for growing mushrooms, is the fruiting space. There's a couple approaches that you can do to fruiting. You can divide this space into different sections like I do on my farm, or you can have one large open fruiting area. So there's pros and cons to both of these things, but ultimately it comes down to your crop cycle, your rotations, and containing any potential contamination from spreading through your farm. If you're thinking about buying one of those fruiting trailers, just know that most of that trailer is going to be devoted to fruiting the mushrooms, which is the most important part when you're having a small scale mushroom farm. The last space that not many people think about when designing a mushroom farm, or if you're considering purchasing one of those plug and play farms, is the miscellaneous processing space and the cold storage for after you harvest your mushrooms. So for here on my farm, that's about 100 square feet, but you can get away with much less. I would say that you need enough space to store your bulk substrate. So if you plan on getting monthly deliveries, you can cut that space smaller. Or if you're gonna buy enough substrate for an entire year, just plan accordingly how much space that will require. Also, you're going to need space for your sterilization and for your packaging and picking and processing of your mushrooms. So you can do that on a small table like this, or if you're scaling up a little bit more, then I recommend having enough space to set up a few tables or a really long table, and that way you won't be overcrowded when you're loading your sterilizer. All right, I hope you enjoyed that video on how much space is required for a small scale mushroom farm. Make sure you check out the fantastic fungi Gratitude Drops. The link is in the description below. Until next time, much love.